in an organization or in a country than a leader who has no solution. We can't be asking someone else, how do we solve this? The people are looking to us to resolve it. Nothing worse in an organization or in a country than a leader who has no solution. We can't be asking someone else, how do we solve this? The people are looking to us to resolve it. Nothing worse.
I could listen to that all day. She was speaking about ANC. This was South Africa's former international relations minister, Pandor, warning ANC that they must elect quality leaders who will serve the people, or ANC will be rejected by the people. South Africa has had the great fortune in that they had in the ANC and some of its founding fathers, like the late Nelson Mandela, the vision, the foresight to realize that what is best for the country is that those in positions of power should be accountable to the people. ANC embraced the idea of giving the people a meaningful vote and making sure that the leaders are accountable to the people. What she was talking about here is nothing new. ANC had an absolute majority since the end of apartheid in 1994. But for the first time last year, they lost that absolute majority. Yes, they had the majority in parliament, but not enough for them to form the government on their own. So they had to have a coalition government. What she's saying here is ANC will be rejected even more if they don't reform and they have quality leaders who have got to have the realization that if they don't serve the people will reject ANC. There is nothing magical about being the party that brought about the end of apartheid. That doesn't give them the divine right to rule. ANC has already received a bloody nose last year. And what she's telling them here is that you have got to sit back and see what lessons to be learned. And the most important lesson to be learned here is ANC received a bloody nose because they were not serving the common good. The leaders became engrossed in their own selfish interests. Corruption has become rampant in South Africa. One of the scourges of most African countries. The contrast between ANC and ZANU-PF across the Limpopo is that ZANU-PF has never embraced the idea of giving the people a meaningful vote. The party has paid lip service to one man, one vote. ZANU-PF was scared of one man, one vote. Even the nation's first elections in 1980, ZANU-PF went out of its way to undermine that. At the Lancaster House Agreement, it was agreed that both ZANU-PF and PF-ZAPU, who had freedom fighters in the field, must withdraw the freedom fighters to assemble points, designated as assembly points, during the campaign leading to the elections in 1980. ZANU-PF agreed to that, signed on the dotted line. But by the time they'd returned back to Zimbabwe, they changed. ZANU-PF kept a number of its operatives, freedom fighters, in the field. And their instructions was that if ZANU-PF does not win the elections, the Bush War would continue. That was their campaign message. One man, one vote was out of the window. Zimbabwe has never held free, fair, and credible elections since 1980. Never. The nearest the country got to holding free, fair, and credible elections was in 2008, when the SADC leaders had put ZANU-PF under enormous pressure to carry out significant electoral changes to make the election meaningful. One of those big changes was that all the vote counting will be done at the polling station. Ballot boxes will not be moved from the polling station to some central point where the votes will be counted. They must be counted at the polling station. And the results must be announced there and put on the board so that everyone can see. ZANU-PF was not prepared for that one. And so they had no answer to that. And when the people realized they had the opportunity for the first time to have a meaningful vote, they seized it with both hands. ZANU-PF was given a bloody nose in 2008, in the March vote of 2008. But before the results could be announced, Emmerson Mnangagwa and Constantino Chiwenga intervened. Here is an account of what happened in 2008. That's underlying the problem that Zimbabwe has no healthy and functioning democracy.
I also know that Mugabe conceded defeat on 2008. He phoned Mbeki and Obasanjo to concede defeat. I hope that Thabo Mbeki and Obasanjo will one day make that public. But one of them, I won't say which one, told me that Mugabe phoned them that Saturday night and said, look, I lost the election and I concede defeat. And I know that Mugabe stuck to his guns. I was prepared to go. His wife was since bags packed to go somewhere on the following day, when Mnangagwa and Chiwenga approached him and said, you stay where you are. And then they contrived the runoff, sadly with the help of South Africa. And runoff took place, very violent. 360 people were killed. The South African, I came here as part of a delegation to Cape Town to see members of the ANC. I don't want to mention names, they're my friends. I saw them, and through them, a cabinet committee subcommittee of South African cabinet was set up on the Zimbabwe issue. It was on the basis of that cabinet committee that South Africa did not recognize the runoff. And indeed, it was the basis of that committee that Thabo sent the generals to South Africa, to Zimbabwe. I met them, and I was one of the few to have read the report, because I was flying to Joburg in the company of General Romano, who was a friend. He passed away, no? That's why, yeah. And I also took people who had lost their hands in the violence to the South African embassy in Harare. And Romano broke down in tears. How can a liberation movement treat these people like that? He was a broken man. So there's no doubt at all here in South Africa as to the brutality of the regime in Harare. So it amazes me, it angers me, in fact, when I hear the nonsense coming out of people like Mbalula's mouth. They know it. And the report has never been published, the general's report, to this day. That tells you. Is it complicit behavior? I don't know. But to get back to 2008, the runoff took place. Mugabe was sworn in at midnight before boarding a plane with Mbeki to Sharm el-Sheikh. Ambassador, I forgot to mention that. Yes? I'm not talking about it was contrived, but clearly there was a definite plan to keep Mugabe in office. And it's no secret that I had Thabo speaking the other day, saying the Zimbabwean people came together to form the GNU. It's only half true. Morgan Tsvangirai was literally regimented into the GNU. That's a fact.
Well, he was regimented into the GNU. But what we cannot also deny is that the GNU did give Zimbabwe the opportunity to implement the democratic reforms which would have dismantled the ZANU-PF dictatorship. Morgan Tsvangirai and company failed to implement even one token reform in 5 years of the GNU. That is a historic fact. And we, the people of Zimbabwe, are paying dearly for it to this day. Whereas the minister, Pandor, was talking of ANC becoming irrelevant to the people of South Africa if they fail to reform themselves and produce quality leaders. We in Zimbabwe, we know that ZANU-PF is a party of thugs, corrupt, incompetent, and murderous thugs. They have managed to stay in power these last 45 years because they rigged the elections. And it must be said, the last 25 years, they've managed to stay in power with the connivance of MDC CCC leaders. I think the people of South Africa can look to the future with hope. Because if you cannot get a quality leader and they have got the democratic power to remove that individual, you have hope. In Zimbabwe, we don't. Right now, we are facing an election in 2028. Nelson Chamisa and company conned the people to participate in flawed elections in 2023. He insisted that he had plugged all the vote rigging loopholes. ANC was going to win big. The people believed him. Nearly 2 million Zimbabweans voted for him. A similar number in the diaspora supported him. The day after the voting was done, he was the one admitting that ZANU-PF had rigged the elections. The very thing that he said he had plugged the vote-rigging loopholes. The truth is beginning to come out now that MDC CCC leaders have been playing a double game. They've been ZANU-PF Team B in all but name. They've been playing for Team A to win and for Team A to have legitimacy. And hence the reason why Zimbabwe is stuck in this mess. Our challenge in Zimbabwe, unlike that in South Africa, where they've only got to exercise their democratic right to elect quality leaders, there is nothing magical about ANC. If it fails to reform itself and produce quality leaders, yes, ANC must be thrown to the rubbish heap. In Zimbabwe, we have no such luck. We have a regime in ZANU-PF that believes they have the divine right to rule the country. And they've been aided and abetted in this with a corrupt, incompetent, and utterly useless MDC CCC opposition. The people themselves have got to wake up to that reality. Because as long as they keep participating in their millions in flawed elections and give ZANU-PF legitimacy, we are stuck. The solution is to stop participating in flawed elections. I repeat, the solution for Zimbabwe is to stop participating in flawed elections that are so flawed, so illegal, the only logical step is to withdraw, as David Coulthard admitted in his book. Why it has taken us this long to get that message, beggars belief. But that's where we are as a nation. That's why we are in this mess as a nation. We have got to realize that Zimbabwe is a dysfunctional state. That's why we are a failed state. We will never get quality leaders from the present political system. Zimbabwe's political system is like a sewage pond. You'll never get quality fish out of that pond. We need to implement the democratic reforms and thus drain the sewage pond and fill it up with clean water. Only then can we have hope of getting quality leaders. Our friends across the Limpopo are miles ahead of us. They have a healthy, functioning democratic system. They only have to vote the failed leaders out and make leaders democratically accountable to the people. Think about it. Thank you very much. Have a good afternoon.